I think coffee is one of those things that actually like sucks you in like a rabbit hole. A very expensive hobby to take on. I'm Alicia Steyn and I'm a coffee roaster. Coffee roasting is really complex and like I think people think it's like browning an onion, but it's like very nuanced and very complex, and then a lot of coffee is undrinkable. So I taught myself from scratch. I did a lot of reading, a lot of like seminar watching, YouTube video watching, and a lot of coffee in the dustbin. Undrinkable coffee, terrible coffee. And then at some point like I figured out how it works. It was one of the most difficult skills I ever had to learn. And there's a lot of bro science, you know, it's like, I can't even pay for a course that's going to teach me. Like you can get a lot of roasting courses, it's not gonna make you a good roaster. So I was roasting for about a year or two by myself, and then I just created like a brand. But I studied a lot of like creative things like stage prosthetics, music. So coffee is very creative for me. That's an outlet. I love profiling, I love getting new coffees and figuring out how to roast it for that coffee. There's a bit of like creative art and then a bit of science, which is also actually one of my favorites. For you to be a good roaster, you have to roast a lot and be very critical. I look for defects when I drink something. It's like, that's my job. Be like, this is wrong with it, this is wrong with it. And up until I can't find anything wrong with it, it doesn't go on the shelf. I like a lot of fruits. So for me, I want high acidity and a lot of fruits. I don't buy a lot of washed coffees, and washed coffees tend to be less fruity, very like your everyday kind of coffee. Natural coffees tend to be like fuller, juicier, a lot of body, a lot of fruits. I like those coffees, and then we have a lot of experimental processed coffees now. They involve culturing and fermenting. They taste really interesting and like intense and like funky. Just call them like wild and funky. So if something's got like nice acidity and some fruit, it's always like up there for me. At some point, I think I had like a little quarter-life crisis and I quit my job. I think I did a Google search and I was like, what can you do in coffee? Like what kind of jobs? And there was like coffee roasting came up. And I was like, oh, that must be the coolest thing. It just felt like this dark art, you know, like who does that? Who are these people? That's when I started roasting on a pan because that was easy. I bought like some green coffee at a local roaster and then I was just like stirring it and figuring that out. So for me too, there was like a process for me before I could start like buying a little roaster and actually selling. Like everyone was a bit worried. You know, my mom was worried. My mom's a very big supporter of mine, but she's going to be like, are you making the right decision? Like, what are you gonna do? When I told my girlfriend at the time, she was like, do it. Like, if anyone can do it, it's you. She was always there to catch me. There was like 100% support structure. Even at that time, my coffee was terrible. Like, she was sometimes like, sure, like, it's really not tasting good. But never once, she was like, maybe you should look for a job, you know? So that's the only reason I'm here today. I didn't think of sorcery ahead of time. Like, I was like, okay, I'm ready. I've got a little roaster, and I was like roasting a little bit. And then I was buying decor, and I didn't have any idea what I was gonna do. And I was at this place, and I saw these like wooden pitchforks from China, and they grew them, like they binded them so that this wood was growing like that, and they looked like pitchforks. And I was like, that's really cool. I bought them, and I actually kind of built something around that. So sorcery, the word was like, it had a lot of value for me. It was a strong word. We bought a small house in Pretoria, Moot, and then converted the front of the house into a little cafe, and we lived in the flat at the back. So that was about a year and a half, where the entire house was actually a cafe. And I was looking for investors. I wanted to expand. I also kind of wanted to get out of living where I was working. That was a challenge. And I actually had customers that were regulars there, and they were also looking for the same kind of thing at the time. And they were like, well, just come see the space. Maybe you can move the roastery. And I was like, sure thing, I'll come. Like, I remember the first time I was here, it was such a beautiful space that I didn't want to leave. I think the next day I came back and I was just sitting here for the sunset, like downstairs. I took a break when I closed the roastery that side before I moved here. And then I went to Benin where I was gathering stuff for this cafe. I was backpacking, so I had like a backpack. And then I just kept collecting these little, and you'll see them all around, like little manikis. And then I was just collecting them, and then it got a lot, so I was like wrapping it with like things. And at some point, it literally was a ball like this with like masks and little things that I acquired, and I was just walking around like that. So I moved the roastery here and the cafe. And at the time, I think we didn't think a lot of people were gonna come out. That was the consensus among us, and we were just like, well, we were waiting for a little store in Colburn, the one that we've got now. We're waiting for it to open up, so we're like, I've got chairs and stuff, so I'll just put it down. And then it was like a flame, you know, because it's such a beautiful space. Like people were just like trampling the doors, and we just had to like expand, which was like obviously such a blessing. It was, yeah, it wasn't what we expected. It like blew me away. It was really, really nice. I'm so proud of it. Like I'm always like, it's such a rich culture that I've chosen. I could do anything with it, and it's still evolving. My challenges starting Sorcery, I mean, firstly, I think acquiring the funds for it was like, it took me about 5 or 6 years. And then I think it was about 2 months in, and then COVID was hit. I mean, it's like everyone's story. And then it was just like really difficult. I don't think I picked the best area for the brand because it was a bit like controversial, you know. I always knew there was going to be some backlash, but I didn't expect the extent to what it got sometimes. So then like getting people to trust that what we were doing or to understand what we were doing. If you live in a community with like people are like old school conservative Christians, it's not something that they understand. When I saw West Africa for the first time, I was like, that was just different. You know, it was just sitting off the line, and I was like, that's just so interesting. It was such a beautiful thing. And I think people don't understand it because it's a little bit weird, especially like the packaging that we do. Everything is like photos that I took, and we just made these collages of it. And it's like the weirdest things, but I was just observing. So for me, it was really nice. It was really interesting. We still get a lot of that. People are like, a bit like skeptical of the brand. And then we've built a lot of like community around that. You know, there's a lot of people that are like, these guys are just doing something really interesting, and they're just doing coffee, because that's what we do. We just make coffee, you know. It's like, yeah, so I think that's been a challenge for us. I just really hope we get to a place where people understand specialty, where it's a bit more mass market. I hope that we can make this kind of coffee for very long, because it's like fighting an industry, specifically in Pretoria. You don't always know, like, am I gonna make it or not? And I think like if we could just continue doing that and like keep the lights on and people come to appreciate it, you know, I think that would be just wonderful.